Born on February 12, 1809, in a one-room log cabin in Hardin County, Kentucky, now LaRue County, Abraham Lincoln came from humble origins. His family was poor, and life on the American frontier was harsh. His mother, Nancy Hanks Lincoln, died when he was just 9 years old, leaving young Abraham and his sister Sarah under the care of their father, Thomas Lincoln. Despite his limited formal education, amounting to no more than a year of schooling, Lincoln was self-taught, reading every book he could find. He had an insatiable curiosity, devouring works like the Bible, Aesop's Fables, and Shakespeare. His love for learning and his natural talent for storytelling set him apart even as a young man. As he grew older, Lincoln worked a variety of jobs: rail splitter, store clerk, surveyor, and postmaster, before discovering his passion for law and politics. His journey from frontier boy to self-made lawyer was the first step toward a destiny that would change American history.
In 1834, Lincoln was elected to the Illinois state legislature, where he quickly gained a reputation for his intelligence, honesty, and unwavering stance against slavery. He taught himself law and became a respected attorney in Springfield, Illinois. In 1846, Lincoln was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives, where he opposed the Mexican-American War and the expansion of slavery. Though he only served one term, his political ambitions never faded. But it was the passage of the Kansas-Nebraska Act in 1854, allowing new territories to decide for themselves whether to permit slavery, that reignited his political fire. Lincoln saw it as a direct threat to the moral and political fabric of the United States. His debates against Senator Stephen A. Douglas in the 1858 Illinois Senate race became legendary. Though Lincoln lost the election, his eloquence and unshakable stance against slavery propelled him to national prominence.
In 1860, Lincoln ran for president as the candidate of the newly formed Republican Party. His platform was clear: slavery must not expand into new territories. His message struck a chord in the North, but outraged the South. On November 6, 1860, Lincoln won the presidency, but his victory ignited a political firestorm. Southern states saw his election as a direct threat to their way of life. Before Lincoln could even take office, South Carolina seceded from the Union, followed by 6 other Southern states. By the time Lincoln was inaugurated on March 4, 1861, the United States was on the brink of civil war. In his inaugural address, Lincoln pleaded for unity, declaring, "We are not enemies, but friends. We must not be enemies." But despite his calls for peace, the Confederacy saw no alternative but war.
On April 12, 1861, Confederate forces fired on Fort Sumter, South Carolina, marking the start of the American Civil War. Lincoln now faced the greatest crisis in the nation's history, a war that would decide the fate of the Union. Despite having no military experience, Lincoln quickly proved himself as a capable wartime leader. He strengthened the federal government, expanded the military, and took decisive action to keep the border states from joining the Confederacy. The war was brutal, with thousands dying on battlefields like Antietam, Gettysburg, and Shiloh. Lincoln suffered deeply with each loss, but remained steadfast in his mission to preserve the Union at all costs.
As the war raged on, Lincoln realized that preserving the Union alone was not enough. Slavery had to end. On January 1, 1863, he issued the Emancipation Proclamation, declaring that All enslaved people in Confederate states were free. Though it did not immediately free all enslaved people, it transformed the war into a fight for human freedom and paved the way for the 13th Amendment, which abolished slavery in the United States forever. Lincoln's leadership turned the tide of the war. By 1865, the Union Army under General Ulysses S. Grant had pushed deep into Confederate territory. On April 9, 1865, Confederate General Robert E. Lee surrendered at Appomattox Courthouse, bringing the war to a close. The Union was saved and slavery was abolished. Lincoln had achieved what many thought impossible.
Just 5 days after the war ended, on April 14, 1865, Lincoln and his wife, Mary Todd Lincoln, attended a play at Ford's Theater in Washington, D.C. As the president laughed at a scene from Our American Cousin, an assassin crept into the presidential box. At 10:15 p.m., John Wilkes Booth, a Confederate sympathizer, fired a single bullet into the back of Lincoln's head. The president slumped forward as chaos erupted in the theater. Booth jumped onto the stage, shouting, "Sic semper tyrannis," thus always to tyrants, before fleeing. Lincoln was carried across the street to the Peterson House, where doctors did everything they could to save him. But at 7:22 a.m. on April 15, 1865, Abraham Lincoln died. The nation was plunged into mourning. The man who had led the country through its darkest hour was gone.
Lincoln's assassination was a national tragedy, but his legacy lived on. His leadership saved the Union, ended slavery, and reshaped the course of American history. His words continue to inspire. "Government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth." Gettysburg Address, 1863. The best way to predict the future is to create it. I am nothing, but truth is everything. Today, Lincoln is regarded as one of America's greatest presidents. The Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. stands as a tribute to his enduring impact. His leadership, wisdom, and dedication to justice continue to inspire the fight for freedom and equality worldwide.
Abraham Lincoln was more than just a president. He was a symbol of perseverance, unity, and justice. His life, from humble beginnings to the highest office, proves that greatness is not inherited, but earned through character and conviction. Though he was taken too soon, his vision for America lives on, shaping the nation he gave everything to preserve.